and welcome back to Study Room. Before starting the lecture, I would like to say, don't let the numbers bother you because mathematics is all about playing with numbers. So in today's lecture, I'll be teaching you a slight different but an interesting topic of mathematics, that is visualizing solid shapes. By far the chapters of mathematics dealt with numbers and a lot of calculation. But this chapter, you'll have to observe and then analyze the different shapes of the objects all around you. Confused? Let's get into the video to know what visualizing solid shapes actually mean. The very first thing that I'll be teaching you is two-dimensional and three-dimensional figures. So two-dimensional figures are those plane shapes with two measurements, or we can say two dimensions. Let's take an example of a rectangle. In a rectangle, we have length of the rectangle and the breadth of the rectangle. So a rectangle has two measurements, so it is a two-dimensional figure. And two-dimensional figure is also written in brief as 2, and then we give a hyphen and it is written as capital D. So it is also known as 2D. Next up, we have three-dimensional figures. Three-dimensional figures are those solid shapes that has three dimensions or three measurements. Let us take an example of a cuboid, or let's say the room we are sitting in. So this room is also cuboidal shape. So in a cuboidal shape, we have three measurements, that is length, breadth and height. Height can also be known as depth. So a shape, a solid shape that has three measurements, it is known as three-dimensional. And in brief, we also write three-dimensional figure as 3 times of D. Like we write 3, we give a hyphen and we write capital D. So it is also known as 3D. I hope it's clear. And another important thing is that a three-dimensional figure will occupy some space. Like if we have a cuboid, like a book is a cuboid shape. So book occupies space. But when we have a two-dimensional thing, so it won't be occupying any space because it is not in this three-dimensional sphere. Got it? Now, we will be visualizing some of the solid shapes, which will be two-dimensional and three-dimensional both. The first on the list is a square. So, in a square, we have a length and a breadth. Though in a square, we know that the length and breadth both are same, but the number of measurements in the square is 2. So, what will it be? It will be a two-dimensional shape. Okay? Next, we have a cone. A cone is a three-dimensional shape. Why? Because it has three measurements. Let me show you. This is known as the radius of the cone. This is known as the height of the cone. And this slanting line is known as the slant height of the cone. So in total, we have three measurements of a cone. So a cone is known as a three-dimensional solid shape. Now, I'll be showing you some more solid shapes. Over here, we have a cylinder. Again, a cylinder is a three-dimensional figure. Next, we have a triangle. Triangle is a two-dimensional figure. Now, how can we differentiate it? If we have a cylinder, it will be occupying some space. So, those figures that occupy some space is known as a three-dimensional figure, and those figures that do not occupy space is known as a two-dimensional figure. Next up, we have other shapes like cube. Again, in a cube, we have length of the cube, we have breadth of the cube, and then we have the height of the cube as well. So this is the length, this is the breadth, and this is the height of the cube. So a cube is a three-dimensional figure. Next up, we have a circle. A circle is a two-dimensional figure. Okay? Next, we have some other shapes. Here we have a cuboid. Again, a cuboid has a length, a breadth, and a height. So cuboid is also a three-dimensional. Now we have a sphere. The example of a sphere can be a ball. A ball, it occupies some space, so it will be a three-dimensional figure. Now I'll be showing you some practical life examples of these shapes that I showed. Like we have studied a lot of two-dimensional and three-dimensional shapes. Now let us see that what are the objects around us whose shape is similar to the shapes that we have studied. The first example that I'll be showing you is a tent. Now, what does a tent looks like? A tent basically looks like let me divide the tent from over here. Just observe it. This particular tent has two three-dimensional shapes. the bottom part is actually a cylinder. It's a cylinder. And this cylinder is surmounted by a top part which is known as a cone. So we can say that a tent comprises of two three-dimensional figures. Next up, we have a tin. A tin occupies space, and by looking at the tin, we can say that it is a cylinder. But we can see that here we have certain width of the tin. So it is known as a hollow cylinder. In a tin, we can place some ingredients. So it's known as a hollow cylinder. The next thing we have is a softy ice cream. Now, the bottom part looks like a cone. And this top part, the scoop of the ice cream, it is somewhat spherical in shape. So it's a sphere. And the bottom part is a cone. Now, we have a photo frame. So a photo frame basically looks like, from the top view we see it looks like a rectangle, but it has some volume. It occupies space. So ultimately a photo frame will be cuboidal in shape. Now this is a bowl. This bowl, the shape of this bowl is again a new three-dimensional shape, and it is known as hemisphere. This is known as hemisphere. I'll tell you what a hemisphere is. Whenever we have a sphere and then we cut the sphere from between, what will we get? We will get a hemisphere. Next, we have a tomb on a pillar. So this is a pillar, and then on the top we have a tomb. So the tomb on a pillar is basically conical in shape. It's a cone, and this bottom part is somewhat cylindrical in shape. Now, I'll be giving you some practical life examples of some objects, okay? And you have to match it with the shape. It's getting interesting. Let me show you. The first thing we have is an agricultural field. So, what does it look like? We have these following things and we have to match it. So, I think that this looks like a triangular field which is adjoining a square field. So, I'll match this with this one. We have a triangular field and it is adjoining a square field. Next up, we have a groove. Now, what does the shape look like? It looks like a cone that has been taken out of a cylinder. So, do we have any option over here? Yes, we have a cone taken out of a cylinder. So, we'll match it with a cone taken out of a cylinder. Next up, we have a toy. This is a toy. What does it look like? It looks like a hemisphere that is surmounted on top of a cone. So, when we have a cone and on that, we have a hemisphere. So, we will match this with a cone, that is, a cone is there in the bottom and a hemisphere is there on the top. Now, what is this? This is a circular path, and it looks like there is a ground and then there is a circular path which is surrounding the ground. So, we will match the circular path with a circular path which is surrounding a circular ground. Now, we have a cross path. What does it look like? It looks like a rectangular cross path inside a rectangular path. Like this is a rectangular path, and then we have these two rectangles that are crossing each other. So, we will then match this one with the first option, that is two rectangular cross paths. We have this rectangular cross path and another rectangular cross path. So, there are two rectangular cross paths within a rectangular path. Now, let's visualize some other three-dimensional objects that we come across on our daily life. So, the first example that we have over here is a hut. Okay, so this is a hut. It looks like this when we see it on a piece of paper. When we draw a hut, it looks like this. But a hut is a three-dimensional figure. So, it will have different views. When we view the hut from the top, it somewhat looks like this. So, this is the top view of the hut. Now when we look the hut from the front, it somewhat looks like this. So this is the front view of the hut. Now, if I look the hut from the sideways, it somewhat looks like this. So this is the side view of the hut. I am thirsty. Bring me a glass of water. Yes, the next example that we have is a glass. So now basically the glass looks like this. Now, just consider looking at the glass from the top portion. What will it look like? it will look like this. So this is the top view of the glass. And now when we look at the glass from the sideways, then it looks like this. So this is the side view of a glass tumbler in which we drink water or any sort of thing. I suppose you must have all seen a brick. How does it look like? Basically, a brick looks like this. Now let us visualize the different views of a brick. When we look at the brick from the top portion, it somewhat looks like this. Now, try looking at the brick from sideways. Will it look like this? Yes, it will. Now, look at the brick from the front view. The front view of the brick looks like the first figure. So, this is the front view of the brick. I hope you all must have played with Rubiks Cube. So, the shape of the Rubiks Cube is obviously a cube. So, let us now join the Rubiks Cube. Like we'll take 3 Rubiks Cube and join one of them adjacent to the other and take the other cube, the third one, and join it on top. So, we will get a figure like this as it is shown over here. Now, let us try to visualize the different views by joining 3 cubes. So, here we have joined 3 cubes and now we will visualize the different views. The first view is the side view. Like when I look at the cube from the side portion, it will look like this. Somewhat, it will look like a rectangle. Okay. The second view will be the front view. So, when I've joined 3 cubes, I look it from the front portion, it will look like this. Here, it can be said as like we have 3 separate squares, or it can be said as it is a rectangle and then a square along with it. So, anyways, it is just based upon your visualization. Next up, we will take the top view. When we look at this setup from the top portion, then it might look like this. So, it will basically look like a rectangle when we look at from the top portion. Now, let's take one more cube along with the 3 cubes and join them. But this time, we will join 2 cubes together and the other cubes together and place these 2 setup in a sliding way, just like the one that has been shown in the figure. Now, let us visualize the top, the side and the front view of this setup. Now, when we look at this setup right from the top, it will look like this. I hope it's clear. Second, look at the sphere from the front view. When we look at the front view, then it will look like this, which is basically a rectangle. Now, try viewing it from the side portion. When we view it from the side, it will look like these 3 blocks which comprises and whole together makes a rectangle. So this is the side view of the cube, the entire setup which is made up of 4 cubes. With the same 4 cube, we will try making a different setup. This time, we will place 3 cubes in one line and then attach the 4th cube with the cube that is between the 2 cubes. So we'll attach it and the setup will look like this. So this setup is basically a 3-dimensional setup, but when we try looking at this setup from different views, then it will appear as a 2-dimensional figure. Let me show you. When you look at this setup from the side view, it will appear as a rectangle with 2 blocks. Now, when we see at this setup from the top view, then it will again look like a rectangle, but this time there will be 3 blocks appearing to us. Let us try viewing the cube from the top portion. The top portion of the cube might look like a rectangle and then a square in between the middle block. So this is the top view, this is the front view and this is the side view of this setup that we made using cubes.